and welcome to the meeting of the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians Education Committee. I call this meeting officially to order and let the time show it is 4 minutes after 2 p.m. on January 18th, 2019. First order of business, I'd like for committee members to introduce themselves. I will start at my right as we welcome our newest board member.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Carol Mountain. I am the Director of Nursing at Sac City College, affiliated with Los Rios. I'm a nurse educator and have been one for a long time.
And we're really thrilled to have you. Welcome to the board and welcome to the education committee. As I said, I'm Denise Vasquez-Martinez. I'm the chair of this committee and also vice president of the board. Next, I'll have our executive officer introduce herself and the staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Elaine Yamaguchi, the Executive Officer of BVNPT. Always a pleasure to be here and to see so many people interested in the work we do. Our staff here today, our Enforcement Chief Candace Rainey in the audience, our Education Analyst Geraldine Marcino over here. We have a couple of NECs somewhere on the approach, Sue Ellen Clayworth, Jessica Gomez, and Faye Silverman. And to my right, and you got to know how happy I am to do this introduction. We have just hired a supervising nursing education consultant, Marie Cordero. And Madam Chair, with your indulgence, I'd like to ask Marie to say a few words.
Oh, absolutely, please. And welcome. We are so happy you're here.
Hi everyone. Some of you are very familiar faces to me. So now I'm on this side, and it's been a wonderful 8 days, but so I've had the pleasure before of sitting on that side. Now I have the pleasure of sitting on this side. So I'm just looking forward to working with all of you, and it's great to see so many of you out. And as you know, I've been a director for about 18 years in the private and the not-for-profit sector. So now here I am. Nice to see everyone.
Thank you so much. And again, I can't express enough, we are very delighted to have you here. We'd like legal counsel to please introduce himself.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kenneth Swenson, Senior Staff Counsel, Attorney 3, Counsel for the Board.
Thank you. We want to next move to the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone will please rise, and if the EO will lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In the next agenda item, I'm going to ask for everyone's indulgence because we do have a rather meaty agenda. In lieu of introducing all of the schools and the representatives here, I just want to say on behalf of the committee and the board, thank you for being here. We welcome you, and we really do appreciate all that you do and the fact that you do come to these meetings, whether you're on the agenda or not. Next item of business is the discussion and a possible action to make recommendations to the board regarding Brightwood College's closures. And I want to start and ask the EO to give a very brief overview to make sure we are all on the same page. And I do understand there will be some individuals with us who will speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as of the beginning of December, we were notified that the Brightwood College system, which has a number of nursing campuses here in California, had abruptly decided to close its doors without any notification to its students, staff, and faculty. This presented a number of challenges, not the least of which was there was probably about 400 students impacted by this who then basically were left without a school, and most of whom had already paid for a considerable amount of their education. Now, in the ensuing 6 weeks, a number of organizations have stepped forward to help. Up in Northern California and Central California, quite a number of campuses allowed students to transfer into their existing programs. And down in Southern California, for the Van Nuys and San Diego campuses specifically, there have been efforts to organize and create and execute a teach-out to accommodate the entire cohorts of those two campuses. More about that later. Now, to explain actually the overall, what it means to do a teach-out, what it means to do a campus closure, our good friend Michael Marion from the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education has very graciously agreed to come and present, again, a succinct explanation of what that means and how things happen and the sequence of events.
Hello, good afternoon.
And if you'll please speak directly in the mic and again, introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon, everybody. They don't make these tables for tall people, I see. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. My name is Dr. Michael Marion. I'm the Bureau Chief of 15 months for the Bureau for Private Post-Secondary Education, and today with me I have
Scott Valverde, and I'm the Chief of the Office of Student Assistance and Relief here in DCA.
So welcome to your new members. My wife actually works in Los Rios, and I worked in that district for a long time, so I'm very familiar with it. You guys just had convocation. Well, first of all, it's an honor and pleasure to be here. As I said, my name is Dr. Michael Marion, and I've been in this role for about 15 months now. My background is education, private post-secondary, private 2-year and 4-year. I've been in education for almost 20 years. And so, as everybody knows, the mission and the focus of the Bureau is consumer protection, and we oversee almost over 2,000 institutions and branches and satellites. And so I am the 4th Bureau Chief within the last 9 years, so it's been a lot of change at the Bureau, but we are trying to provide stability and do a good job. Over the next couple years, we're going to be very busy in being able to actually moving into this building in the next few months, and I know our team and our staff is very excited about that. But getting into the teach-out plan, as Elaine talked about. So traditionally, a teach-out plan, what should happen is that within 30 days of an institution closing, per Article and Statute 15 and Regulation 5, we should be informed, and not only within that 30 days, we should be provided a closure plan, a teach-out plan, and any agreements with other institutions where students may be able to transfer or be able to move on and continue their education. Also, in addition to that, 45 days, we're also supposed to allow for students to be able to participate, those that participate in FAFSA, to be able to be returned their funds, whether that's to them personally or through the FAFSA process. In addition to that, a list of students should be given to us within 60 days. And at the end, the last thing that should be done is a plan for disposition of students' records, so transcription, those types of things. Devastatingly and unfortunately, we found out within 48 hours of this closure. And so, like anybody and all people, I was very disappointed and frustrated in this process because we want to do our best that we can to protect our students. And so basically what we went into action there. And so I will pass it over to Scott to tell you a little bit more about the details specifically we did within those 48 hours. And I want to give certainly a round of applause to his team and our team to be able to carry out some of the things they did. Just one additional piece I think is important. Not only do they have 11 campuses in California, they had over 3,000 or just under 3,000 students that we had to get to within 48 hours. And so, you know, for me, this is very heart-hurting. And not only did I come here, I went to BRN's presentation or a board meeting last week, was that?
Yes.
Last week, and we had over 200 students in the room. And luckily, I think we were able to move in the right direction in supporting those students with the Teach Out plan. But, you know, to be able to be a student and to see that your program is closed and you're in your last semester and your days from graduating is one of the most shocking and devastating things I've seen as an educator. And as I finished our presentation, we walked out and there were multiple students that came up to me and gave me a hug and they were crying. It hurts my heart to be able to see those situations. And so I'm happy to say that we did a great job at reaching out to them and making sure they have provided the resources and things that they need to make sound decisions. And I'll let Scott tell you a little bit about that.
Thank you, Dr. Marion. So as Dr. Marion mentioned, we did have a short time to work with, extremely short timelines, but unfortunately, I have a very dedicated staff that was ready to deploy when this did happen, and also fortunately, as disorderly as the closure was in many respects, it was advantageous in that we did have a comprehensive roster with student contact information for all students who were enrolled within 120 days of the closure, as well as site contacts at each of the 11 closing campuses to set up the logistics of our workshop. So those were the good things. We did conduct 11 on-site workshops, one for each of the closing ECA campuses in California, 10 Brightwood colleges, and 1 golf academy are owned by ECA that closed in California. We had staff that conducted workshops, meeting with students who were impacted by the closure at each of those sites to go over all of their options, including their right and ability to have their federal loans discharged and to have all of their payments that they've paid to the school out of pocket reimbursed to them through the state program that we administer, if the student chose to do so, to sort of start over. For those who didn't want to start over and wanted to continue on with their education, we talked about transfer possibilities in situations where other receiving institutions would be willing to take their hours and move over to their school and transfer. And then lastly, the option of teach-out agreements, although we did not have a teach-out agreement, as Dr. Marion said, as the statute requires in-house at that time. We talked about the possibility, if those were vetted and developed and approved in the future, then we would be vital in communicating that information to them as well. And so we've made contacts with all those students. We met with about 700, between 700 and 750 students on those 11 workshops. That's out of the approximate 3,000 that Dr. Marion said who were impacted. And then we continue to follow up with those students post-workshop as well, doing wraparound services, continuing to reach out to students who were not able to make one of the workshops. And we are, in fact, planning on putting on additional workshops in the future as well, particularly in the San Diego area, as they were probably most heavily hit by this closure with 4 campuses in the greater San Diego area. We also participated in a partnership event with the San Diego Community College District resource fair that they did for Brightwood students as well. And as Dr. Marion mentioned, we presented at the BRN meeting last week as well. So to date, we've received 125 applications for reimbursement under the state program, and with the mail inbox filling up pretty much daily, so we anticipate that number will go up more. Although many students are in limbo as well. Those are students who have decided that this was traumatic, this is not what I want to do, I want to start over, I want to look at a different program, I want to move on, I kind of want to hit the reset button. There are many, that's 125 out of 2,800, as I mentioned. So there are many who are considering all of their options, who are struggling, working with other institutions to try to transfer their hours, others who don't know what they want to do, quite frankly, at this point, and others who are eagerly awaiting the approval of the teach-out agreements that are pending both with BRN and that are on your agenda here today. Upon approval of any teach-out agreements, our role moving forward would be to communicate those opportunities and options to all students who could benefit from that as well. So through all of our communication channels, our direct relationships with students, social media, website, staff contacts, et cetera. If a formal teach-out agreement is approved by all the parties who are required to approve a teach-out, we will definitely get that information to students in a timely manner as they make their informed decision moving forward. So that's sort of a summary of what we've done and what we intend to do moving forward with the Brightwood students. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate that. EO, did you have any closing comments? Please.
I do, thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to add to what our colleagues have provided. Pardon me. In response to this situation, when the staff leadership and I discussed what BVNPT could do before anything else, we did decide that we would provide a waiver of the application fee for any of the Brightwood students who would like to apply to be evaluated for the equivalency, the Method 3 application. So far, a few students have availed themselves of that. I'm pleased to say. It's a long shot, I know, but for those students who were very, very close, to be able to have that option, we felt was important, and we wanted to be able to at least do something. I wanted to mention that we received well in excess of 100 emails and letters from affected students. I read them, our NECs read them, and it was heartbreaking. But I wanted to say how nobly our NECs responded. They've been working with all the affected parties to the extent possible. They've been providing advice everywhere. But I also wanted to extend my very profound respect and admiration for the Brightwood College's faculty and directors who really went above and beyond the call of duty to try and get their students off the ledge in trying to make sure that there were options communicated to them and basically to try and get them set up to get them the most access to the most information that was available, which, early on wasn't very much at all, but I think they did really nobly there. And so I would commend their selflessness there. Now, to move forward, as our colleagues from BPPE mentioned, there is not currently a approved, complete plan for the teach-out. Right. But what we have in front of what we have been provided with is a teach-out agreement between the Brightwood College's holding company and the, I always mess up the acronym. It's SEC and it stands for, thank you very much, Success Education. And I know that their folks have been working quite assiduously over the past 6 weeks to make that work so that we were able to, at the very least, work with BPPE and the Department of Ed and the accreditors to, at the very least, not hold up the teach-out or transfer of all the other Brightwood students and programs. Right. So, as I said, we have this agreement in place, but it is, and let me be very clear, it is not a teach-out plan yet. Okay. And BVNPT may not proceed with a motion that is not grounded with the approved plan. So as we move forward, and I know that these efforts are in progress, our next steps, well, twofold, really. Upon receipt of the completed plans, our staff will be working with the SEC staff to develop and approve their plans, and our board, upon a recommendation from this committee and action from our full board at I won't say emergency, but a special meeting. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you so much. A special meeting next Friday. We can and should approve make a conditional approval of the process so that we can allow things to move forward. We can, again, allow the majority of the affected Brightwood students to be able to move forward, and then so also to lay the ground for us to be able to approve a fully fleshed out plan. Madam Chair?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before you go, just a minute, there might be questions that come. Speaking on behalf of the executive committee, the president of the board as well as I as vice president, we are very concerned and have also received comments from students. One can't ignore the kind of impact and effect that something like this has on the lives of the individuals who trusted an institution to prepare them for a successful career, and then to have it disappear as if it were a puff of smoke was more than upsetting, and I'll just leave it at that, which is somewhat unusual for the nature of how we like to see professionals behave. That said, we do want to make sure if there's anyone present who has a question or wishes to make a comment. Usually we call for public comments if there is a motion on the floor. This is an unusual circumstance, so we want to make sure as a committee we hear from anyone who has commentary about this issue. And so if you would please approach. I've asked our early presenters to stay because they might have questions directed to them. And so we want to make sure you're available. And there are individuals approaching. Just a few comments before you begin. If you will approach, take a seat with the mic, introduce yourselves, not knowing how many individuals wish to comment. We do ask you, please limit your comments to 3 minutes, if you please. We'd appreciate that. We want to give everyone a chance to speak. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sherry Soretsky. I am the previous dean of the Brightwood College campus in San Diego. And I just wanted to come and add to what was being said already. We have almost 125 students that want to partake in the teach-out, if that is approved. We have already, secured building, we've, our lab equipment, everything, and the students are eagerly anticipating being able to complete. What you had said about it being heart-wrenching, I know we have spent many nights crying over how this transpired. It was horrible. So we're just laying this before the board to be able to help us to help the students to be able to become nurses. We've done a very good job at the San Diego campus and at the North Hollywood campus. We had very good pass rates. The students were very well employed, and so we just like the opportunity to be able to take the students that were dumped in the middle of this, and that's a horrible word to use, but I can't think of another one, and be able to help them complete. So.
My name is Judith Hodson, and I'm the dean. I was the previous director of nurses at Van Nuys. I also just kind of reiterate what Sherry said. We both have students. She has many more than I do, but I have 44 students currently waiting desperately to start their program again. And so we just thank you for the opportunity to help them.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I guess I'll knee.
Oh,
How's that? I'll bend the knee. My name is Sergej, last name is Kesochekian, and for the record, it spells S-E-R-J-I-K. First name, last name is K-E-S-A-C-H-E-K-I-A-N. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be present in front of the board. I'll make it very brief. I am the Chief Compliance Officer for the Success Education Colleges. You are more than welcome to look us up on the internet. All I want to tell you is that We have conducted teach-outs in the past. We are proposing to do the same thing for the ADN program at the San Diego campus. And what we're proposing to do, and just to be very clear, is that these wonderful people have already been hired by our organization. So we're proposing to hire their faculty, former Brightwood faculty, former Brightwood DONs, and any kind of sort of staff teacher, et cetera, that will be required to conduct this teach-out. So what we're doing is we're going to do it so that they pick up where they left off. There won't be any overlap, whereas it may be with a transfer situation. So I'll be here to answer any questions if they come up, but I thank you for your time again and for considering this.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there others who would like to speak? Please approach. Okay. Seeing none, gentlemen, do you have questions of Success Education?
No, we just came here to provide
Okay.
information.
Thank you so much. Let me see if I can kind of paraphrase and summarize. At this time, it's our understanding there is not a full approved teach-out plan, which does present a bit of a challenge to the board because as a board, well, even as an education committee, it's difficult to recommend a particular vote without a definite plan because that means nothing technically has been approved. Given that circumstance, I want to turn to legal counsel who might be able to give us a few suggestions about how we might approach this.
You need us?
Thank you. Again, thank you so much, gentlemen.
Madam Chairman, you correctly summarized the situation the committee and ultimately the board is presented with. What is on the agenda today is approval of the proposed teach-out agreement. And I recommend that any motion relating to approval of the agreement make note that the approval process does require submission of a compliant plan for the teach-out, which would include faculty, curriculum, and facilities. With that said, it would be appropriate under the circumstances and the exigencies existing at this time for this committee to recommend to the full board that it approve the concept of the teach-out embodied in the teach-out agreement as elaborated on today by the individuals who have provided testimony, and that the matter be subject to a motion for recommendation to the full board at the next scheduled special meeting on the 25th of this month.
Okay. Thank you so much. To my committee colleague, any questions about what our recommendation is from the legal counsel? You have to speak in the mic. Nate again.
I do not have any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Language for that, I'm wondering if you want to take a shot at something?
Sure.
Usually as chair, I do not put motions on the floor.
The committee recommends that the board conditionally approve the proposed teach-out agreements between Education Corporation of America, doing business as Brightwood College, and Success Education Colleges, doing business as Northwest College, Van Nuys, and Glendale Career College, as being in the best interest of students affected by the Brightwood College closure. Under the board's regulatory process, a teach-out institution is required to provide the board with a teach-out plan consisting of information related to its faculty, curriculum, facilities, and clinical placements. The board anticipates that this conditional approval will become non-conditional after receipt and review by the board of information related to the faculty, curriculum, facilities, and clinical placements that meets the minimum requirements outlined in the board's regulations.
And is that a motion?
It's a motion for conditional approval.
Okay, and I will second the motion as the other member of the committee. I do not believe there's a need for any further discussion unless you, as my colleague, have a question or anything.
I do not have any further questions.
Okay, legal? So, and I don't have either. As I mentioned earlier, if there is a motion on the floor, we do open for public comment, and in this case, it's public comment about the motion. There was such a long line. Seeing none, I will bring this to a vote, and it is a person-by-person vote. Dr. Mountain?
Yes. Yes.
Myself, yes. It carries. We, as a committee, are sending a recommendation to the full board, which will meet next week in special session. I believe the agenda is posted on the board's website. It will be open meeting, so anyone who wishes can also present themselves, and any further comments can be made at that time. Thank you, and particularly thank you to the faculty, staff that were here. Thank you to Success Education. Did I get that right? It's amazing what can be done in times of challenge when people work together collaboratively. We can make differences. So thank you so much. We want to move to the next agenda item.
I hate to cut you off, but I do
Yes.
thank you as well. So thank you very much for allowing us to help the students, truly, and the faculty. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Thank you. Next item, discussion and possible action to make recommendations about program placement on provisional approval. And I see one of our NECs approaching. Good afternoon, Ms. Silverman.
Hello.
You have some information for us, and why don't we let you start? And this is Hacienda La Puente Vocational Nursing Program.
Hacienda La Puente Adult Education, I am presenting to the Education Committee for consideration of placement on provisional approval. On July 15th, we had multiple complaints from students, and we forwarded communication to the director at that time, and the director responded on August 1st. And after review of those documents, there was 5 violations to the regulations noted. On September 4th, based on those 5 identified violations, the executive officer rescinded the program's ongoing admissions for 2 full-time classes of 30 students per calendar year and to replace graduating students. On September 5th, they were sent a notice of violations via certified mail, and they were required to correct those 5 violations by September 21st. The director had some issues with her computer. She did reach out to me on September 21st and spoke to me, but I did not get the documentation until the 24th. On the 24th, I also got additional students calling me with complaints about the school. At that point, there was a discussion amongst NECs, and it was decided that on October 23rd and 25th, there would be an unannounced site visit. At the site visit, the original 5 violations were not fixed, and we found 16 additional violations with a total of 21 violations. After the visit, I sent out a certified letter with all 21 violations, requesting that they be addressed by December 1st. I did get documentation for 9 of the 21 violations, and of the documentation that was submitted to me, 4 have been fixed. The others have not been fixed. My recommendation is to place Hacienda La Puente Adult Education VN program on provisional approval for 2 years, beginning February 22nd. Require the program to correct the remaining of the 21 existing violations by May 1st. Require the program to submit a report both on September 2nd, 2019, as well as November 1st, 2020, with the following items listed, and I'm not going to read all the items that are listed. Require the program to provide no less than 1 instructor for every 10 students in clinical experience.
Thank you. Is there anyone present from Hacienda? If you will please approach. And if you will please introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon. My name is Suzanne Zemer. I am the director of the Vocational and Psychiatric Technician Program for Hacienda.
Please use the mic. We have to encourage everyone to use the mic. We are being broadcast, and so to help those that are present with us here, they rely upon the mic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have supporting administrators who accompanied me today. I will let them introduce themselves.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Buckner. I'm the Executive Director of Adult Education for the Hacienda La Puente Unified School District.
Val Clifford, Program Administrator, Health Careers, Hacienda La Puente Adult Ed.
And Micah Goins, I'm the Director of Career and Technical Education.
You have received this report. Do you accept the recommendations?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from, or comments from committee regarding this particular school? While you review, go right ahead, please.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay. I do. And I was, as I read the report, I have to be quite frank, I was somewhat taken back. Oftentimes, we do get complaints from students and others, frequently not founded, but in this case, they were, and we do understand you do agree with the circumstances. Talk to us just a little bit about how you believe it might have slipped under the radar screen to get to the place we are at this moment. Because we do understand you're working to make it better.
We are, and thank you. We have found that over the past 20 years of our program, that there wasn't a lot of ongoing observation of how we can improve our processes. At the beginning of last year, we lost 2 clinical sites, we lost 3 instructors, and I lost the administrator of the program. So that was part of what happened with our process, although we do have to own that there are things that we didn't do.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, please, go right ahead.
If I might respond to that as well. Some of those transitions were the personnel transitions were transitions that took place in response to the issues that we were dealing with. And so we recognized that we had personnel in place that were not performing to the level that we needed them to be performing at. And for a variety of different reasons, people made transitions. But I've got 2 administrators who are new to their roles with me today. They have worked closely with our Director of Nursing and are significantly responsible for the changes that we have already made in direction. And we have 2 new teachers in the program who have made a significant difference as well for the experience that our students have and the compliance that we have with the standards for the State Board of Nursing.
Okay. That's very helpful. We couldn't help but notice the pass rates, and it was very puzzling, given the good pass rates, how could you have so many violations? That said, reflecting on the types of violations, can you speak to your confidence in the fact that while students are passing the exam, how do you believe they are performing? In other words, moving theory to practice? Because one of the things we're charged with is the protection of the public in the state of California.
And Suzanne may respond to this as well, but I wanted to, one of the points that I wanted to convey is that we're very proud of not only of our adult school, but we're very proud of our nursing program. And with that said, we're also aware of the challenges that we've faced, challenges and the deficiencies that have arisen over the course of about the last year. We're aware of the charges, and even Ms. Silverman, I think, may recall, not only are we aware of the issues and the deficiencies that arose in our program, but when she and Ms. Gomez conducted the unannounced visit to our school, to our program, I said to them, hey, we welcome you here. We're glad to have you here. We want to have another set of eyes that's taking a look at this. We're aware of deficiencies that are going on, but we appreciate having another professional set of eyes that can give us some guidance and direction in the things that we need to address. Towards that end, I'll say that we're very motivated to make the changes that are necessary. We're happy to work with Ms. Silverman on this. It is our understanding that we have addressed and corrected all of the charges that have been brought up. If there is additional information or documentation that we need to provide that is not clear or is not understood, then we're happy to do that. And I don't say that to contest anything that's being discussed here. I'm saying that as an example, as an evidence of our motivation and our drive to make sure that not only that we're in compliance with the standards of the State Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians, but that we're providing a great product to our students. And we believe that we are. We believe that we're back on track. We just graduated last week, a class of 22 students, many of whom are already ready to start up to take their examination. And we've got another cohort that is finishing out. It's not a new cohort after the charges. It's a continuing cohort that we're finishing out of 25 students. And we've got, like I said, our new administrators working with our director of nursing have taken a lot of steps to put into place and address the deficiencies that existed in our program. We very much feel like we're on the right track at this point.
Ms. Silberman, yes.
So I just want to let the board know that Ms. Zemmer and I had probably about an hour and a half to 2 hour conference at the beginning of the week. We went over the 21 violations. We went over the paperwork that had been submitted to me. There is some paperwork apparently that never came through, and she's in the process apparently of getting that to me. But as of this moment, 4 violations are corrected.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question about, you mentioned that you lost 2 clinical sites. I'm wondering if you've replaced those sites and is it apples to apples? What's the crossover there?
We've been able to, one of the concerns was we didn't have a pediatric site, and since then Faye has been able to approve a pediatric clinical site for us. We lost an acute care facility. We have been a client of LA County USC Medical Center, but last summer they did not give us the rotations we normally have. They're using the new CCPS system, and they just starting in January gave us pediatric, OB, and 2 med-surg units through May. So we're very lucky. So we have more clinical sites. We had one other site that Faye was approved for us last summer. So we have more sites. We have 2 newer instructors, 2 subs, and there was one other thing I wanted to share.
You said they approved those sites through May, and what's the plan post-May?
Well, this class will probably finish early, so I'm still, 2 of the sites we still have, 2 extend at LA County, I'm still waiting to find out for approval for medical surgical. But will have already met the pediatric and OB component of the program.
Thank you.
And I might-
Yes,
if I
please.
just add to your question, typically our contracts run through, LA County is going to be unique, but typically our contracts are going to run through June 30th, and we go through a process in the spring of renewing, and we fully anticipate that we're going to be able to renew with all of our current clinical sites for the following year. We go through the process with our school board and with the sites that we work with to make sure that that happens. So that'll all be taking place.
Have you had your sites for, clinical sites are a big issue in the state of California. So I just want to verify that if those clinical sites don't pan out, do you have a contingency
We
plan?
do. We have 2 other sites that we're using concurrently, but with the ratio going down 1 to 10.
Yep.
We now have, as I said, not only those 2 sites, but 2 concurrent abilities at county, starting in February for students to do med-surg there as well.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ms. Silverman, would there be any changes to your report, or it stands as is?
My report stands as is. I will take the opportunity upon receipt of any more additional information to go through that. So the only thing that might change at the board meeting would be how many violations they have documentedly corrected.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to make a recommendation regarding this program to the board?
I move to recommend to the full board that it accept the report and recommendations of the NEC.
I second it. There's a motion on the floor. We're open for public comment. Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Dr. Mountain?
Yes, I vote yes.
Yes, it passes. This will be moved to the full board meeting in February, which will be in Southern California. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We want to move to next institution. Ms. Silverman?
Yeah. American Medical Science Center Vocational Nursing Program is here for consideration of placement on provisional approval. In accordance to 2526.1C of the Vocational Nursing Rules and Regulation, the board may place any program on provisional approval when a program does not meet all the requirements set forth in chapter and in also section 2526. If you look on page 4, you can see the pass rates. They've ranged from -73 to -44. They have been non-compliant for the last, actually, 9 quarters. On December 3rd, I did do a site visit. There was 6 violations that were identified. My recommendation is to put American Medical Science Center on provisional approval for 2 years, starting February 22nd. Require the program to correct all the existing site violations that were noted by April 1st, 2019. To continue to require the program to provide no less than 1 instructor to every 10 students in a clinical experience, and 2 reports, 1 due on September 2nd, 2019, 1 due November 1st, 2020, to come to the board so we can evaluate their progress.
Is there a representative here from American Medical Science Center? Please approach, have a seat, and if you'll speak directly into the mic and introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ann Anderson, and I'm the Director of American Medical Science Center Vocational Nursing Program.
Good afternoon. You've received a copy of the report.
Yes.
Do you accept the report?
I accept the report very definitely. The violations are as stated. I have not sent the materials to Ms. Silverman yet about the corrections, but they are in process. What had happened at that point shortly before, well, not shortly, a few months before Ms. Silverman came for her visit, we had actually moved from the first floor where the school had been for more than 20 years to the fourth floor. And in that process of moving, multiple boxes of files, mine particularly, got misplaced. So some of the things Ms. Silverman needed to see, I couldn't find them because I couldn't find the boxes, but I have since found them.
Okay, thank you. Questions for this school?
Yes, I see in here that you've had a real issue with your skills lab, and I'm wondering, do you have a plan in place to restore it to order, to have the appropriate supplies, so that students can practice before they get out in the clinical area?
Oh, absolutely. We had not gotten all of the square footage at the time that the contract with the owners of the building had said they would let us have. So the skills lab actually had 2 extra desks and some administrative people working in there. But those desks have since been removed, and the supplies have been ordered, and I actually found some extra supplies so that the students could use them in the skills lab for the things that they needed to do. I also found, unfortunately, that the other program that's there had been coming in and helping themselves to the supplies that we had in the skills lab, and they didn't tell us that they were doing that, because I couldn't figure out why stuff that we were supposed to have had disappeared. And now they understand they can't do that.
Do you have a way to lock your skills lab or keep your supplies separate?
Yes, and I'm considering hiring an armed guard.
And of your 3 mannequins, are they all low fidelity, medium fidelity?
The school has had them for a while. I think they're not automatrons. They're mannequins that have injection sites, and we can do various things on them, but they're not electronically automated at all.
And do you, in the future, do you see that as part of your curriculum or your upgrade, even there's what they call a medium fidelity, where they're not really automated, but they are designed for nursing skills?
I want them to do more. Yes, that is part of my plan, to get some additional materials for the students to use and to have in the skills lab. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, just as an aside to that, I'm actually going to be going to a training session next Friday that Adele Blanco is holding on skills labs that use simulation. And I'll be the person going, and then one of my faculty who's currently on a medical leave, she had already been running simulation for another school whose program is no longer operating, but she's anxious to come and do that.
So in the future, you see yourself purchasing or obtaining some mannequins that are able to be participants in simulation? I mean, you can use low fidelity, but it's nice to have something that
Yes.
gives a little bit more robust experience for the student.
Right, particularly for OB and for
Nice.
labor and delivery. There's a baby that I'm familiar with, that we had at charter college. And that was really helpful for the students. So that's what I would be getting if and when we get to that place where I can purchase it.
And do you see that as part of the future of the school?
Absolutely, because we want the program to continue, and we want to be able to get back to the 25 students that we are approved for, but we have these other things in place to correct, particularly the pass rate, before we're going to be able to do that.
And how about the rest of your move? Do you feel like your classrooms are in place and other facilities are now, like the library, I was seeing the picture of the library and not really set up, nothing's really ready?
No, the library is the next thing that's coming along. We got the desks out of the skills lab, and now we have to decide where the library is going. We have an electronic library. We use e-learn and have for a number of years. But the ultrasound program, which is the only other program that is part of this school, they need to have access to a library and to an area where they can come in and study as well. So we're figuring out where to place that. It won't be just a library for the, or study space for the VNs. It'll be for all students in school.
But at this time, the library's still not set up.
Not, I have books available, and I have them in the supply closet area for the skills lab. And the students can use them if they want, but by the same token, it's not set up the way I would like to have a library and a resource center set up for them. Not yet, but it will be.
Thank you. And what's that timeline that you see?
I want it done by the end of April. And some of the problem that we had with, again, space was the contractual agreement between the owners of the building and the owner of the school.
And do you feel that that's been resolved?
You know, I wish that I could tell you yes. I'm not really sure because I am not privy to any of those meetings. I don't go to meetings with the owner of the school and administration and the owners of the building, but there are still some negotiations going on generally that should be finished, over with, and done so that by the end of February, we know exactly what we're going to be working with.
So how do you get communication to know that what facilities are available to you or what you can move around, like how you can create your library or do these things? How are you getting that information?
One person is keeping me informed that they're still negotiating for additional space, and the owners of the building are in progress to make that space available, because they had to do a little bit of not plumbing, but they had to do some moving of space and changing of things. But I'm not privy to those meetings.
So I have to know how your students handle kind of being in this flux situation.
Oh, we're not in a flux situation. I'm sorry, I may have misguided you. We have a classroom that belongs to the VNs. We have a skills lab that belongs to the VNs. And so the students have their classroom and the skills lab. The other office space that I'm talking about is down a hall and not part of the area that we use right now. But the students haven't said that they are unhappy about this, because they come, they have their classroom space, we have the skills lab that we use, and they have access to whatever it is that they need.
And they have some type of e-learning system, online access to a library
Yes.
or articles that are available to them to
Yes.
support what they're learning for
Yes.
evidence-based practice.
Yes, and I've indicated to them the supply of textbooks that I have and have them set up in the supply area. That's going to be moved where it will be more available to them, and again, a resource center, if you will, for the entire school or the student body in the school. So
Okay.
it seems to be working at this moment, and if they need a place, if they need books to study or someplace where they want to stay, the school is open to any students who want to stay after class hours.
Okay, thank
So
you.
there's not an issue with that, I don't think.
I do have a question that came up as a result to a response about the communications with building owner, et cetera. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. If I'm hearing correctly, your link to space and other needs is through another person
Administrator for the school,
for the school in which your program
yes,
is part.
yes,
So they do understand the needs for preparing vocational nurses.
yes, on a daily basis, they hear it from me and have for the last couple of years, absolutely. But I'm simply not privy to the meetings between the building owner and school administration or the owner of the school. That is not something that I have access to, and probably wouldn't be appropriate for me anyway. But the
Right.
administrator and the owner of the school do understand the specific needs that the VN program has, which are a little bit different than the ultrasound program that is also part of the school.
Which is what our concern was. If someone is negotiating space or other resources for a program and they have no understanding about what the program does, we aren't sure you're getting what you need.
Yeah, and I may have misled you and not made it clear, but just because I'm not part of those negotiations with those individuals, they do understand, the administrator and the school owner understand what we need, and that if we don't have it, that can put the program in jeopardy.
Thank you.
Do you feel well-informed about what's happening with these negotiations?
I feel well-informed. I don't see the need for me to be there particularly as the director of the program. I don't see the need for me to be sitting in a room where I want to be as accurate as I can, where it's hostile negotiations between building owner and the people that they rent to.
Let me interject and ask the other question. You said there is another program that's there, and it's what, ultrasound?
It's an ultrasound program.
Does the director of ultrasound or your similar component sit in those meetings?
No, well, let me put it to you this way. The owner of the school, Dr. Bardan Karajazian, is the owner of the school, and he started the ultrasound program. The administrator is the same administrator for the ultrasound and for the VN program. There aren't multiple administrators. So those two gentlemen are the ones who negotiate with the building owners. And the building actually got sold June or July. And dealing with the new owners apparently is somewhat more challenging than with the previous owners, from what I gather, in the meetings that we have with school staff.
I guess my concern is,
Yeah.
as the director of the program, you become directly responsible for the experience of the students. It is completely linked to the space that the students are in to have their learning experience. And I guess I'm not hearing that you have timely enough information and are being considered enough to make sure that the environment supports the student learning that needs to happen.
Okay, let me answer that. Actually, the information that I had and the information I was able to give them, one of the first things that got set up was the classroom for the vocational nurses and the space that was going to be used for the skills lab. Those were the first two considerations that the owner of the school, the administrator, had, and they followed through with that. Actually, the skills lab has the biggest space, and the classroom that is dedicated to the vocational nursing is the biggest classroom. So they did listen to me, and they did follow through with that. I guess what I'm saying is that I don't go to those meetings that they go to, but it doesn't mean that I can't give them information that is not respected or listened to, because it is. Excuse me.
We'd just like the NEC to recognize whenever you have your next visit or discussion regarding this school, that this committee, its members, have questions about that interaction, the access to information or communications with the decision makers.
So noted.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
I move to recommend to the full board that it accept the report and recommendations of the NEC.
I second it. There is a motion on the floor. Is there public comment? Seeing no one coming forth, I'm going to call for a vote, and it's a roll call vote. Dr. Mountain?
I vote yes.
Yes, that passes. We will move the motion to the full board. Thank you very much.
Thank you for my perhaps less than satisfactory explanations. But thank you again, and thanks for the consideration. And I do want to say that when we had the unannounced visit, I was actually happy to see Ms. Silverman. I really was.
And we do want you to know, it's not about being satisfactory or unsatisfactory. We're just concerned that you, being in charge of a program, have access to the right folks to get the resources you must have if you're being held responsible for the success of a program.
Yes, and I agree with that, and thank you again.
Ms. Gomez, our next item, discussion and possible action to make recommendations to the board regarding reconsideration of forfeiture of program approval. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. The owner has requested to have this report held until your April meeting because he said he did not have time to prepare for the meeting. He met with the executive officer and myself in November. At that time, we gave him the date that this meeting would be, so it was hard for me to understand why he did not have time to adequately prepare. And I told him that for the April meeting, that this would be reflected also in that meeting. That.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. So noted.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we are open for public comment for items not on the agenda. If there's anyone, please feel free to approach, introduce yourselves. Seeing none, we want to move to an additional item, future agenda items. Committee colleague, we do have regular agenda items, but if there's anything additional, we want to put it on so staff is alerted and can be prepared. I would say at this time it would be helpful at our next committee meeting to have some update on the status regarding the changes for pass rates. I think everybody wants to know how that's going and potential implementation, et cetera.
You're referring to the regulations, I assume?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Seeing or hearing no additional, we will go with the continued items that are always on our agenda. I would also ask the EO, given that our next committee meeting will be at, in a sense, what we call our refreshed year, if you could bring strategic goals so we can kind of check, where are we? Thank you. Well, seeing no additional agenda items, I call for a motion for adjournment,
I move to adjourn.
and we'll vote with our feet. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is officially adjourned, and let the record show it is 3:12.